CEO mistakenly walks in on cleaner changing and falls in love at first sight, a life-changing story. Hello, my beautiful story family. I welcome you to another thrilling story on our channel, where today you're going to witness another shocking tale of love between two people of highly different class, which will in the end leave you thinking of how life could lead us to the most unpredictable moments of our lives. By the way, did you enjoy our previous video and how it ended? If yes, comment a big yes, I did now. When you take time to share your thoughts, write your reactions, or simply leave a heart emoji, it fuels my passion to continue creating these stories for you. You're not just viewers, you're part of our growing story-sharing family. This morning, while preparing to write this story, something extraordinary happened. While I was rushing into my favorite coffee shop, already running late for a meeting I scheduled with a potential story source. In my hurry, I mistakenly collided with another customer, sending both our coffees flying. As we scrambled to clean up, laughing at our shared clumsiness, I discovered she was actually the person I was meant to meet. And even in that embarrassing moment, it reminded me that timing, even bad timing, works in mysterious ways. But before we move into how this unexpected love story unfolds, take a moment to become part of our story family. Quickly hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. That way you'll join this special family and the love we share on every new story adventure. I'm sure you don't want to be a stranger in this growing family. Now you've subscribed and joined the family, today's story takes us to the gleaming heights of Sterling Industries, where power meets humility, and where timing, both perfect and imperfect, plays its delicate hand. It all began on a quiet evening, when the prestigious office building stood nearly empty, its corridors silent except for the gentle hum of cleaning equipment and the occasional click of expensive shoes on marble floors. What happened that evening would challenge everything society tells us about class barriers and workplace romance. A proud CEO, known for his ruthless business acumen and impossibly high standards, was about to learn that love doesn't follow corporate hierarchy. And a hard-working cleaner, who took pride in her honest work despite others looking down on her position, was about to discover that fairy tales can bloom in the most ordinary moments. As the city lights twinkled outside those floor-to-ceiling windows, neither of them knew that a simple mistake, walking through the wrong door at the wrong time, would write the opening chapter of their unexpected love story. Let me take you back to where it all began. But before we fully dive into it, I need a little bit of your help. In the comments below, share which country you're watching from, and tell me, if you were to be the wealthy CEO, would you allow yourself fall in love with someone far below your class? Your answers might surprise you, just as this story surprised everyone involved. Maria Martinez's day began long before the sun peeked through the Manhattan skyline. At 4:30 a.m., when most of the city still slumbered, she would gently kiss her sleeping daughter's forehead before quietly slipping out of their modest two-room apartment in the Bronx. The morning air held a certain crispness that reminded her of her own mother, who had taught her that dignity comes not from what you do, but how you do it. Her morning routine never varied: a quick prayer of gratitude, a cup of coffee in her treasured thermos, a Mother's Day gift from her daughter, and a 45-minute commute on the early morning train. She'd watch the city wake up through the train window, her mind already planning the day ahead. The other passengers, mostly service workers like herself, shared knowing glances. They understood the weight of responsibility that came with being both mother and father to a child. At 36, Maria carried herself with a quiet grace that spoke of someone who had weathered life's storms without letting them dim her spirit. 10 years had passed since her husband's tragic accident at his construction job, leaving her to raise their then 8-year-old daughter alone. But Maria never let anyone see her struggle. She transformed her grief into determination, her fear into courage. The silver locket around her neck held 2 photos, one of her late husband smiling proudly in his work uniform, and one of their daughter at her high school graduation, valedictorian of her class. These images were her compass, guiding her through exhausting days and reminding her why every sacrifice was worth it. The world saw a cleaning lady, but her daughter saw a hero, and that was all that mattered to Maria. During daylight hours, Maria worked as a cafeteria assistant at a local elementary school, serving warm meals with an even warmer smile. The children adored her, often running to hug her legs, calling her an MSM because they struggled with Martinas. She'd slip extra fruits into the bags of children she knew came from struggling families, a small gesture that made her feel connected to her own mother's generous spirit. But it was her evening job at Sterling Industries that truly showcased her dedication. From 6 p.m. until often past midnight, she transformed the executive floor into a pristine sanctuary. While other cleaning staff rushed through their duties, eager to catch the last train home, Maria approached each task with meticulous attention. She treated the office as if it were an extension of her own home, knowing that her daughter's future depended on her reputation for excellence. Her daughter, Isabella, was in her final year of pre-med studies at Columbia University, maintaining a perfect GPA while working part-time at the university library. Despite Maria's insistence that she focus solely on her studies, Isabella inherited her mother's work ethic. "You taught me that dreams come true through hard work, Mama," Isabella would say during their late-night phone calls, while Maria polished the last of the executive suite windows. The executive floor became Maria's sanctuary during these long nights. In the quiet hours, as she meticulously cleaned each office, she would talk to her late husband's photo in her locket, sharing her dreams for Isabella's future. "Our little girl will be a doctor, am I amor?" she'd whisper while ensuring every surface gleamed. The peaceful solitude of the empty offices gave her time to reflect, to dream, and to take pride in work others might dismiss as menial. Each spotless window and perfectly arranged desk was a step closer to her daughter's white coat ceremony. The way Maria approached her cleaning duties at Sterling Industries went far beyond mere job requirements. When other cleaning staff saw empty offices, she saw opportunities to make a difference. Each desk she tidied belonged to someone with dreams and responsibilities. Every coffee stain she removed might prevent an embarrassing moment during an important meeting. The smallest details mattered to her. The executive assistants noticed how their bosses' offices practically sparkled after Maria's shifts. They whispered about how she arranged the desk accessories at perfect angles, how she remembered which executives preferred their blinds partially open for the morning sun, and how she carefully preserved any late-night notes scribbled on whiteboards. One executive assistant even started leaving thank-you notes on her cleaning cart. But not everyone appreciated her dedication. She often overheard snippets of conversation from young executives, their designer heels clicking past her cart. "Just a cleaning lady," they'd say, or "Why does she spend so much time on one room?" Maria would simply smile, remembering her mother's words, "Those who judge the work of others have never known the satisfaction of a job well done." The night security guard, Mr. Thompson, once asked her why she put so much effort into a job most people never noticed. Maria's response was simple but profound: "Every person who walks into these offices deserves to start their day in a space that makes them feel valued. My fingerprints may be invisible, but they're on every success story that begins in these rooms." The cleaning staff at Sterling Industries had a strict schedule, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., no exceptions. But Maria was different. Night after night, she would wave goodbye to her colleagues as they rushed to catch their trains, while she remained behind, ensuring every detail was perfect. Mr. Thompson, who'd been the night security guard for 15 years, had never seen such dedication. The executive floor became her personal mission. She knew every corner, every surface, every subtle detail that others missed. When spilled coffee had stained the cream carpet in the CFO's office, Maria stayed until 2 a.m., carefully treating the spot until no trace remained. When the cleaning company's budget cuts meant fewer supplies, she bought her own premium cleaning products, determined not to let standards slip. Her late-night presence became legendary among the few who worked similar hours. The ambitious junior analysts, burning the midnight oil, would find fresh coffee mysteriously appearing on their desks. The maintenance staff knew they could count on her to report the smallest issues before they became problems: a flickering light, a squeaky door, a temperamental air conditioning vent. But it wasn't just about cleaning. These quiet hours gave Maria time to dream, to pray, and to reflect. Each polished surface reflected her own determination. Every pristine room represented another step toward her daughter's dreams. As midnight approached and the city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she would often pause, look out at the glittering skyline, and whisper her mother's favorite saying, "Excellence is not an act, but a habit." Little did she know that her habit of staying late would soon lead to an encounter that would change her life forever. At 42, Alexander Sterling stood at the pinnacle of corporate success, though his path there had been anything but conventional. Born to a single mother who worked as a waitress in Brooklyn, he learned early that nothing in life came easily. Their small apartment above a noisy deli became his first classroom in business, as he watched his mother carefully count tips and budget every penny. By age 12, he was already showing signs of his future success. While other kids played video games, young Alexander ran a sophisticated newspaper delivery network, employing 5 other children from his building. He didn't just deliver papers, he analyzed routes, optimized delivery times, and even created a rudimentary customer satisfaction system using hand-drawn feedback cards. His mother's sacrifices paid off when he earned a full scholarship to NYU's business school. During his college years, he started a small tech company from his dorm room, building websites for local businesses. What set him apart wasn't just his technical skills, it was his uncanny ability to understand what businesses needed before they knew it themselves. The turning point came when his small web design company developed a revolutionary supply chain management software. Major corporations took notice, and by 28, Alexander had sold his first company for $50 million. But instead of retiring early, he saw this as merely the beginning. He invested every penny into his new venture, Sterling Industries. Within a decade, he transformed Sterling Industries from a modest startup into a global technology empire. His innovation wasn't just in technology, he revolutionized corporate culture, implemented groundbreaking environmental policies, and created one of the most comprehensive employee benefit programs in the industry. Every success seemed to fuel his drive for the next challenge. The financial magazines loved telling his rags-to-riches story, but they missed the deeper truth. Alexander didn't measure his success by the billions in his bank account, but by how far he'd come from that small apartment in Brooklyn. The gold-plated fountain pen on his desk, his first major purchase after selling his company, served as a daily reminder of his mother's words: "Success isn't about where you end up, it's about remembering where you started." The executive floor of Sterling Industries operated under what employees called the Sterling Standard, a level of excellence that bordered on the impossible. Alexander's attention to detail was legendary, almost obsessive. He could spot a misaligned pixel in a presentation, a single decimal point error in a 100-page report, or an imperfect color gradient in a company logo from across the room. His executive meetings became famous for their intensity. Junior executives would spend sleepless nights preparing, knowing that Alexander would question every assumption, challenge every conclusion, and expect answers backed by irrefutable data. His standard response to good enough was a quiet but firm, "If it's only good enough, then it's not good at all." The cleaning staff doubled their efforts when servicing his office. His desk had to be arranged with mathematical precision, laptop aligned perfectly parallel to the desk edge, documents stacked at exactly right angles, and his collection of fountain pens arranged by height. Even the temperature in his office was maintained at a precise 72.5 degrees Fahrenheit. But beneath this demanding exterior lay a deeper purpose. Those who truly knew Alexander understood that his impossible standards stemmed from his unwavering belief in human potential. During performance reviews, he often told struggling employees, "I set these standards not because I want to see you fail, but because I've seen what you're capable of achieving." His harshest criticism was always followed by detailed guidance on how to improve. In the rare moments when he mentored promising young executives, Alexander would share his philosophy: excellence isn't about perfection, it's about refusing to accept mediocrity, especially from yourself. These moments revealed that his demanding nature came not from arrogance, but from a deep-seated belief that everyone had untapped potential waiting to be unleashed. Every morning at 5 a.m., Alexander stood at his office window, watching the city awaken below. These quiet moments were when he felt the full weight of his responsibilities most acutely. Each glowing window in the dawn light represented an employee who trusted their livelihood to his decisions. 5,000 families depended on his ability to steer Sterling Industries through increasingly turbulent economic waters. The pressure manifested in subtle ways: the slight tremor in his hand as he signed major contracts, the way he absently rubbed his left shoulder during tense board meetings, the growing collection of antacids in his desk drawer. His personal assistant noticed how he would sometimes pause while reading employee satisfaction reports, his expression softening when reviewing departments where he knew people were struggling to make ends meet. During company-wide crises, he worked around the clock. When a major client threatened to pull their billion-dollar contract, Alexander didn't sleep for 3 days straight, personally leading the team to find solutions. While his board suggested layoffs to cut costs, he instead gave up his own salary for 6 months to protect his employees' jobs. "These people aren't numbers on a spreadsheet," he told the board firmly. "They're families who depend on us." The weight showed in the growing silver at his temples and the deep lines around his eyes. Each quarterly report felt like carrying an ocean on his shoulders. Yet he never complained. His mother had taught him that true leadership meant serving others, and he lived by those words. Every difficult decision was measured against a single question: how will this affect our people? In his private moments, he would often murmur his father's old wisdom: the heaviest weight a man can carry is the responsibility for others' dreams. Success had built walls around Alexander Sterling that even he couldn't break down. His penthouse apartment, spanning the top floor of Manhattan's most exclusive residential building, echoed with emptiness each night. The spectacular city views and museum-quality art pieces couldn't fill the void that grew larger with each passing year. His personal assistant noticed how he lingered in the office long after meetings ended, finding endless tasks to occupy his evenings. The cleaning staff grew accustomed to seeing his office light on at midnight, his silhouette visible through the frosted glass as he sat alone at his desk. He claimed it was about productivity, but the truth lay in the way he would sometimes pause mid-conversation, as if suddenly aware of the hollow victory his success had become. The media painted him as the ultimate bachelor, speculating about his supposed romantic entanglements with models and actresses. The reality was far different. His dining table, large enough for 12, had never hosted a family dinner. His state-of-the-art kitchen remained pristine, unused except for his morning coffee. The only personal photos in his home showed his mother, no friends, no romantic partners, no holiday gatherings. During rare vulnerable moments with his mother over their weekly Sunday brunches, she would gently probe about his happiness. "All this success means nothing if you don't share it with someone special," she'd say. Alexander would deflect with practiced ease, turning the conversation to business matters or her charity work. But she saw through his practiced smile, recognizing in her son's eyes the same loneliness she'd felt as a single mother years ago. The glossy magazines never discovered the real reason behind Alexander Sterling's carefully maintained solitude. Behind the polished exterior lay wounds from betrayals that had taught him the high price of trust. His first serious relationship in college ended when he discovered his girlfriend had been selling information about his developing software to a competitor. The betrayal cost him his first potential investor and taught him his first harsh lesson about mixing business with pleasure. Then came Rebecca Morrison, the sophisticated art gallery owner who seemed to understand both his drive for success and his need for privacy. For 2 years, she stood by his side at corporate events, charmed his business partners, and made him believe in second chances. The fairy tale shattered when his private investigator uncovered her elaborate scheme. She had been working with a tabloid, recording their intimate conversations, preparing to release a tell-all book about the real Alexander Sterling. The most recent wound came from Catherine Wells, a fellow CEO who had seemed perfect on paper. Their relationship had progressed to the point of engagement, their merger of both hearts and companies celebrated across Wall Street. 1 week before their wedding, he discovered she had been manipulating Sterling Industries stock through carefully leaked information, making millions while potentially compromising everything he'd built. These experiences left invisible scars. In board meetings, he now sat slightly apart from others, maintaining a physical distance that matched his emotional walls. His legal team had grown accustomed to his insistence on extensive background checks for anyone who came close to his inner circle. Even his charitable donations were made anonymously, avoiding the publicity that might invite new attempts to breach his carefully constructed defenses. His mother noticed how he would tense slightly when well-meaning friends tried to set him up on dates. "Not everyone has an agenda, Alexander," she would say gently. But he had learned his lessons too well. In his world of corporate takeovers and billion-dollar deals, trust had become a luxury he couldn't afford. Every potential relationship was analyzed like a business risk, every emotional investment weighed against potential losses. Yet somewhere deep inside, carefully hidden beneath layers of caution and control, a part of Alexander still hoped to be proven wrong. This hidden hope revealed itself in small ways: how he still kept one empty photo frame on his bedside table, how he would sometimes pause to watch couples walking hand in hand in Central Park below his office window, how his voice softened when speaking to happy families at company picnics. It was this carefully guarded hope that made him vulnerable to the unexpected encounter that would challenge everything he thought he knew about trust and love. The Sterling Industries building stood like a crystal guardian against the velvet night sky, most of its windows dark except for scattered squares of light where ambitious souls still worked. At 9 p.m., the usual bustling energy of the corporate giant had faded to a gentle hum of essential systems and occasional footsteps echoing through empty corridors. The evening security guard, Mr. Thompson, sat at his desk in the lobby, completing his crossword puzzle by the soft glow of his desk lamp. The usual sounds of the night shift created a peaceful symphony, the distant whir of the floor polisher 2 stories below, the gentle ding of the service elevator, and the muffled sounds of the city 45 floors beneath. On the executive floor, the overhead lights remained dim to their evening setting, creating pools of golden light that spilled from beneath office doors and traced patterns across the pristine marble floors. The New York cityscape sparkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glittering backdrop to the empty offices where million-dollar decisions were made daily. The atmosphere held that peculiar kind of silence unique to spaces usually filled with activity, a silence that made even the softest sounds seem significant. The gentle whoosh of the climate control system, the quiet beep of the security system conducting its hourly check, and somewhere in the distance, the soft squeak of wheels from a cleaning cart moving methodically through the corridors. Maria Martinez moved through her evening routine with practiced precision, her cleaning cart a familiar companion in the quiet halls. The executive floor was always her final stop. She preferred to clean it when the building was at its emptiest, allowing her to give each office the attention it deserved. She started with the conference rooms, methodically wiping down the massive mahogany tables until they gleamed like mirrors in the evening light. The leather chairs were next, each one carefully cleaned and perfectly aligned with the table. She took special care with the technology, dusting the presentation screens, organizing the various charging cables, and ensuring the remote controls were properly placed. Her cart was organized with military precision, cleaning solutions arranged by purpose, microfiber cloths color-coded for different surfaces, and her special collection of spot treatment products tucked neatly in the bottom drawer. The lavender-scented cleaning solution she used, approved specifically by the building management, left behind a subtle freshness that executives often commented on. As she worked, she would hum softly, old Spanish lullabies her mother used to sing, their gentle melodies keeping her company in the quiet building. Her movements were almost choreographed, a delicate dance between efficiency and thoroughness. Each task flowed seamlessly into the next, her hands moving with the confidence of someone who had performed these actions thousands of times before. The accident happened in Mr. Patterson's office, the CFO known for his habit of leaving half-full coffee cups precariously perched on every available surface. Maria had just finished polishing his desktop, carefully working around 3 such cups, when her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text from Isabella. She'd aced her organic chemistry final. The joy of the moment made her temporarily forget her surroundings. As she reached to grab her cleaning supplies, her elbow caught one of the coffee cups. The cold liquid cascaded down her uniform, creating a large brown stain across her chest and stomach. The pristine white uniform, which she'd pressed just that morning, was now completely ruined. "No, no, no," she whispered, watching in dismay as the coffee dripped onto her sensible black shoes. She quickly grabbed her emergency cleaning supplies, managing to save the carpet from any damage, but her uniform was beyond immediate repair. The coffee had soaked through both layers, her uniform and the blouse underneath. The situation wouldn't have been so dire on any other night. But tomorrow morning, the board of directors was scheduled for their monthly meeting. Every surface needed to be perfect, every room immaculate. She couldn't risk getting cleaning solutions on other surfaces while working in stained clothes. She had to change. Maria checked her watch, 9:45 p.m. The employee locker rooms were 4 floors down, and she'd lose precious time making the trip. Her cart held her emergency uniform, but she needed somewhere private to change. The floor was empty, but she knew better than to risk changing in an open office. Even at this hour, ambitious junior executives sometimes worked late, appearing without warning from their cubicles. Maria stood in the dimly lit hallway, considering her options. The executive floor had a private bathroom, a luxurious space she cleaned daily but had never dared to use. Located at the end of the eastern corridor, it was typically reserved for C-level executives only. At this hour, it would surely be empty. Her footsteps echoed softly as she made her way down the hall, spare uniform clutched tightly to her chest. The bathroom door was unmarked, distinguished only by its elegant mahogany finish and subtle gold trim. She'd just cleaned it an hour ago, meticulously polishing the marble countertops and ensuring every surface sparkled. Through force of habit, she knocked gently, once, twice, 3 times. The silence that followed reassured her. The door opened smoothly under her touch, revealing the elegant space beyond. Crystal sconces cast a warm glow across imported marble tiles, and the air held the subtle fragrance of her own careful cleaning. She stepped inside, relief washing over her as she noted the stillness of the space. The expansive bathroom, with its modern amenities and hotel-like luxury, felt almost magical at this hour. The wall-length mirror reflected her disheveled appearance, making the coffee stain appear even more pronounced against her white uniform. Alexander Sterling sat in his office, his desk illuminated by a single lamp that cast long shadows across stacks of quarterly reports. The clock on his wall showed 9:47 p.m., but time had lost meaning hours ago. He'd been reviewing acquisition proposals since his last meeting ended at 6 p.m., his suit jacket now draped over a chair, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The pressure behind his eyes signaled the beginning of another tension headache. Tomorrow's board meeting loomed over him like a storm cloud. The acquisition of a promising tech startup in Silicon Valley hung in the balance, a deal that could either propel Sterling Industries 5 years ahead of their competition or become his first major failure as CEO. He leaned back in his leather chair, rubbing his temples. The familiar weight of responsibility pressed down on his shoulders. 5,000 employees, countless shareholders, all depending on his judgment. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, "Even giants need rest, Alexander." Rising from his desk, he decided to freshen up before tackling the final documents. His private bathroom, a luxury he rarely acknowledged, called to him. A splash of cold water might clear his mind, help him focus for the final push through the night. He gathered his phone and a file he'd been annotating. He'd learned long ago that his best ideas often came in moments of pause. Moving through his office doorway, Alexander noticed the cleaning cart in the hallway. The quiet presence of the night staff usually comforted him, a reminder that he wasn't the only one burning midnight oil in the building. But tonight, something felt different. The cart seemed positioned oddly, as if abandoned mid-task. He walked the familiar path to his private bathroom, his Italian leather shoes silent against the marble floor. The acquisition numbers still ran through his mind: market valuations, integration costs, potential synergies. Lost in thought, he reached for the bathroom door handle, not noticing the faint light already spilling from beneath the door. The bathroom door opened smoothly beneath Alexander's hand. The first thing he registered was movement, a flash of white fabric, a startled gasp. Then time seemed to freeze as his eyes met Maria's in the mirror's reflection. She stood there, caught in the act of changing, her coffee-stained uniform half unbuttoned. For a fraction of a second, neither moved. The harsh fluorescent lights captured every detail of the moment in crystal clarity: the scattered drops of water on the marble counter, the spare uniform draped carefully over her arm, the look of absolute mortification blooming across her face. Alexander's own expression shifted from surprise to confusion to recognition. The files in his hand slipped, papers cascading to the floor like autumn leaves. The sound broke the frozen tableau. Maria quickly clutched her uniform closer, turning to face him while trying to maintain her dignity. Alexander immediately stepped backward, his usual commanding presence replaced by genuine embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, I didn't," his usually eloquent speech failed him. At the same time, Maria's voice trembled as she tried to explain, "Mr. Sterling, please forgive me, there was an accident, I didn't think anyone was here." Their words collided in the space between them, neither quite hearing the other, both trying to navigate this unexpected breach of professional boundaries. The air felt charged with tension, embarrassment, and something else, an undercurrent neither of them could name. Alexander quickly averted his eyes, his hand still gripping the door handle. In that moment, his carefully constructed walls of authority crumbled, replaced by genuine human awkwardness. "Please, take all the time you need," he managed to say, his voice gentler than anyone in the office had ever heard it. "I'll wait outside." But as he turned to leave, Maria's quiet voice stopped him. "Mr. Sterling, I can explain." Her words carried the weight of someone who feared losing everything. The tremor in her voice touched something in him, a recognition of another soul carrying heavy burdens. "The coffee spilled, and tomorrow is the board meeting, and I couldn't go downstairs because there's so much left to do, and Isabella, my daughter, she just texted about her exam." The words tumbled out, each one carrying years of pride and struggle and dedication. Alexander found himself sharing an unexpected truth of his own. "I spilled coffee on myself during my first board presentation," he said, surprising himself with the admission. 8 years ago. Dark roast on a light blue shirt. I had to borrow a security guard's jacket and pretend it was a new fashion statement. The absurdity of the image, the powerful Alexander Sterling in a guard's uniform jacket, hung in the air for a moment before Maria's soft laugh broke through the tension. It was a genuine sound, warm and unexpected, and Alexander found himself smiling in response. In that brief exchange, the usual barriers of status and position dissolved. They were just two people, sharing an awkward moment, finding unexpected common ground in life's small mishaps. For the first time in years, Alexander felt the weight of his position lift slightly, replaced by something more human, more real. Even in such a compromising situation, it was her composure that caught Alexander's attention. Despite her obvious embarrassment, Maria carried herself with an innate grace that no designer suit could replicate. Her spine remained straight, her chin lifted slightly, not in defiance, but with quiet dignity. He noticed how she'd instinctively folded her stained uniform into a neat square as she spoke, her hands moving with practiced efficiency even in crisis. The same attention to detail he demanded from his executives was evident in every one of her movements. Her eyes, when they met his, held no servility despite their positions, only genuine commitment to her work and concern for its proper completion. Something shifted in Alexander's perception. In all his years running Sterling Industries, he'd passed thousands of employees in hallways, elevators, and offices. But he'd never truly seen them, not like this. He found himself drawn to the way she spoke about her work, with pride rather than apology, with dedication rather than resignation. The gentle lilt of her accent, the careful choice of her words, the way she owned her story instead of shrinking from it, it all spoke to a strength he recognized and admired. In her, he saw something rare in his world of corporate masks and practiced performances, authenticity. Meanwhile for Maria, the reality of the whole situation began crashing over her like a cold wave. Here she stood, in the CEO's private bathroom, caught changing after hours. Her mind raced through all the rules she'd broken, using an executive space, being out of uniform, creating an uncomfortable situation for the company's most important figure. Years of perfect service, of quiet dedication, all potentially ruined in a single moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her spare uniform closer. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her, Isabella's medical school tuition, their modest apartment's rent, the medications her mother needed back home. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and everything she'd worked for could vanish even though he acted nice to her in that moment. "Mr. Sterling," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand if you need to report this. But please know that this has never happened before. This job, it means everything." The words caught in her throat as she thought of Isabella's proud face, of all the dreams this job supported. She could feel heat rising in her cheeks as she remembered all the time she'd carefully cleaned this very bathroom, ensuring every surface met his exacting standards. The irony of now standing here as an intruder wasn't lost on her. A single tear threatened to fall, but she blinked it back, determined to maintain her composure even now. The silence stretched between them, each second feeling like an eternity. Maria's mind filled with contingency plans. Perhaps the hospital would take her back as a night shift custodian, or she could pick up extra shifts at the school cafeteria. But none of these options would be enough to keep Isabella in medical school, to maintain the life she'd so carefully built. My dear story family, I can see your hearts beating with anticipation as our tale unfolds. If these precious moments of unexpected connection move you as much as they move me, take a moment to tap that like button and also drop a comment, because it will help me know what is on your mind and also know how you feel about this story so far. Do you think their chemistry will begin from here? Or would the CEO still be cold towards her after this? Your simple gesture of engaging will help others find their way to our growing community of story lovers. Meanwhile, if you're not yet subscribed, it will take you only one click to join us and stop being a stranger. Together, let's share this beautiful reminder that love can bloom in life's most unexpected moments. Now that you've subscribed, let's return to our story, as we discover how this chance encounter begins to transform both Maria and Alexander's lives. To them, the night had ended swiftly after that encounter. Unbeknownst to them, someone had noticed that she took too long than usual in not just the executive floor, but in Mr. Sterling's own office quarters. It was Thompson, the night security guard, but he didn't think much of it. Not until morning, when news traveled through Sterling Industries like the speed of light through fiber-optic cables. Thompson, the night security guard, had innocently mentioned of the CEO working late again with Maria cleaning same office while conversing with a junior employee. It then transformed as it passed from desk to desk, floor to floor. The fact that both Alexander Sterling and the night cleaner had been on the executive floor at the same time became the subject of increasingly elaborate speculation. The whispers started in the break rooms, where junior associates gathered around coffee machines, voices lowering whenever management walked past. "Did you hear?" they'd ask, leaning in close. Thompson said he saw them talking in the hallway at midnight. Each retelling added new details, new assumptions, new raised eyebrows. The executive assistants, usually the most reliable sources of corporate intelligence, found themselves fielding questions from all directions. They noticed small changes, how Mr. Sterling now paused briefly when passing the cleaning staff, how his usual brisk stride slowed ever so slightly near the break room where Maria took her dinner break. The fact that he knew her name, when he rarely remembered even his middle managers' names, became the subject of countless lunch-hour discussions. Some claimed they'd noticed Maria paying extra attention to the CEO's office, spending more time ensuring everything was perfect. Others swore they saw Alexander lingering in his office past midnight more frequently, his silhouette visible through the frosted glass while the cleaning crew worked. Every glance, every passing moment, every small courtesy was dissected and analyzed by eager observers. By week's end, 3 different versions of the story circulated through the building. The marketing department favored a romantic interpretation, while the legal team worried about corporate liability. The HR department found themselves fielding anonymous queries about workplace relationship policies, though no one would admit to asking. Maria noticed the changes immediately. The way conversation stopped when she pushed her cleaning cart past groups of employees. The curious glances that followed her through the corridors. The sudden silence when she entered break rooms. Each moment felt like walking through an invisible minefield of judgments and assumptions. Her fellow cleaning staff, once comfortable sharing lunch breaks with her, now watched her with a mixture of awe and suspicion. Their usual friendly chatter about families and weekend plans gave way to awkward silences and meaningful looks. Some tried to probe for details, their questions wrapped in seemingly casual conversation. So, you work the executive floor often? Must be interesting up there at night. The worst were the knowing smirks from some of the junior executives, the ones who'd never bothered to acknowledge her existence before. Now they noticed her, but their attention felt like a spotlight she never wanted. She heard the whispers, gold digger, social climber, opportunist. Each word stung like a paper cut, small but sharp. During her evening shifts, Maria began timing her cleaning routine to avoid crowds. She started taking her breaks in empty conference rooms instead of the staff room. The pride she'd always taken in her work became a shield, her focus on perfection a way to prove her worth beyond the gossip. Every spotless surface, every perfectly arranged desk became her silent response to the unspoken accusations. The first sign of trouble came during the monthly board meeting. Alexander noticed the subtle exchange of glances between board members when his assistant mentioned the late-night office operations. Richard Blackwood, the longest-serving board member, lingered after others had left, his concern masked beneath a veneer of corporate courtesy. "Alexander, my boy," he began, his tone carrying the weight of 40 years in corporate leadership, "we need to discuss the optics of recent events." He settled into a leather chair, straightening his gold cufflinks, a gesture Alexander had learned meant a difficult conversation was coming. "The board has received certain concerns about your interactions with the cleaning staff." The words hung in the air like heavy smoke. Sterling Industries maintained certain standards, certain expectations of its leadership. Each measured word carried an implicit warning. Other board members expressed their disapproval in different ways. Margaret Chen, head of the Ethics Committee, coincidentally scheduled a review of workplace fraternization policies. James Wilson, their PR director, left studies about CEO reputation management on Alexander's desk. Even his longtime mentor, Thomas Reynolds, pulled him aside with a carefully worded reminder about maintaining appropriate professional distance from support staff. The quarterly shareholders' meeting became an exercise in careful observation. Alexander felt the weight of scrutiny in every question about company culture, every reference to traditional corporate values, every pointed comment about maintaining proper hierarchies. The message was clear: a CEO could not be seen as familiar with cleaning staff without raising concerns about judgment and authority. During one particularly tense executive committee meeting, the message became explicit. "The board feels," Blackwood announced, studying his Mont-Blanc pen rather than meeting Alexander's eyes, "that certain relationships might compromise the authority required to lead a company of this stature." But despite all that was going on, maintaining professional distance proved harder than either Maria or Alexander anticipated. The executive floor, once a vast corporate space, now felt intimate and charged with unspoken tension. Every accidental meeting in the corridors carried the weight of their shared secret, their unexpected connection. Alexander found himself creating reasons to work late, his usual 15-hour days stretching even longer. He'd pause in his reading when he heard the gentle squeak of the cleaning cart's wheels, his attention drawn to the quiet efficiency of her movement beyond his office door. Sometimes their eyes would meet through the glass, brief, professional nods exchanged, yet each glance carried volumes of unspoken words. Maria adjusted her cleaning schedule repeatedly, trying to find times when the executive floor would be empty. But somehow, Alexander's light would still be on, his presence both comforting and unsettling. She took extra care with his office, ensuring everything was perfect, yet never lingering longer than necessary. Their occasional exchanges remained purely professional, brief comments about cleaning supplies needed or maintenance issues to be addressed. The distance they maintained felt artificial, like actors performing roles they'd outgrown. When Alexander needed to address a cleaning concern, he sent memos through proper channels instead of speaking to her directly. Maria filed her reports through her supervisor, her detailed notes about executive floor maintenance never mentioning the CEO's late-night presence. Yet small moments betrayed them both. The way Alexander straightened papers before leaving his office, making her job easier. How Maria noticed his preference for the evening's lighting and adjusted the blinds just so. The careful dance of timing their movements to avoid direct contact only highlighted their awareness of each other. Each attempted to maintain the proper distance that their positions demanded, while fighting an inexplicable pull that made such distance feel increasingly impossible. Alexander Sterling had never needed excuses to work late before. His dedication to Sterling Industries was legendary, his 16-hour days a matter of corporate record. But lately, his reasons for staying past sunset had shifted. Reports that once seemed urgent could somehow wait until after 9 p.m. Conference calls with Asian markets, previously delegated to his international team, now required his personal attention during late hours. His assistant noticed the change in his calendar first. Meetings that once filled every evening slot mysteriously migrated to daytime hours. The car service that usually picked him up at 10 p.m. now waited until midnight. His dinner orders changed too, no more hurried sandwiches at his desk, but proper meals from the upscale restaurant downstairs, carefully timed to arrive just as the night cleaning crew began their rounds. He developed new habits, reading reports in the conference room instead of his office, taking longer walks through the corridors to check on things, finding reasons to personally inspect areas that had just been cleaned. His usual efficiency gave way to a slower pace, as if each evening held something worth savoring. The security logs told their own story. Sterling, exit, 12:45 a.m. Sterling, exit, 1:20 a.m. Sterling, exit, 12:15 a.m. Night after night, his departure time crept later, each evening stretching longer than the last. The night guard, Mr. Thompson, grew accustomed to seeing the CEO's silhouette moving through the dimly lit floors, his path often crossing the cleaning crew's scheduled rounds. But even with all this chaos, they still never had an actual conversation after their first encounter. Their first real conversation happened naturally, over a spilled cup of tea in the break room. Maria had been wiping down counters while Alexander waited for his Earl Grey to steep. His quiet thank you for her quick cleanup led to a brief exchange about different tea varieties, which somehow turned into stories about their mother's favorite beverages. More moments followed, each one unplanned yet somehow inevitable. A comment about the weather led to shared memories of childhood storms, his from Brooklyn, hers from a small town in Mexico. When she apologized for disturbing his work with the vacuum, he found himself telling her about his first job cleaning offices during college. Their conversations remained brief, professional, yet carried an undercurrent of genuine connection. He learned about her daughter's dream of becoming a doctor, while she discovered his passion for teaching underprivileged youth about business. Each exchange revealed new layers, like pages turning in a book neither expected to read. Sometimes they spoke in Spanish, Alexander's college minor finding new life as Maria's eyes lit up at hearing her native language from unexpected lips. his formal textbook phrases mixed with her warm colloquialisms, creating a private language of shared smiles and gentle corrections. The revelation of their common ground came gradually, through fragments of conversation and observed moments. During a late-night discussion about building maintenance, Alexander mentioned his mother's years as a waitress, her insistence on treating every customer with dignity regardless of their tipping habits. Maria's eyes softened as she shared how she taught her daughter the same principle, that every job deserved respect, every task warranted excellence. They discovered a shared belief in the power of education. When Alexander noticed Maria reading a medical textbook during her break, a used copy she'd bought to help understand her daughter's studies, he recognized the same hunger for knowledge that had driven him through countless night classes. Their different paths had led them to the same truth: learning was a precious gift, worth any sacrifice. Their mutual dedication to family emerged in small revelations. Maria spoke of sending money home to her mother in Mexico, ensuring she received proper medical care. Alexander quietly related to maintaining his mother's independence while respecting her pride, understanding the delicate balance of supporting loved ones without diminishing their dignity. Both valued authenticity above social pretense. Maria noticed how Alexander spoke to janitors and executives with the same direct respect. He admired how she carried herself with quiet confidence, never apologizing for her position yet never playing a role beyond herself. In a corporate world often filled with artificial personalities, they recognized in each other a rare genuineness. Their mutual respect deepened through these small, telling moments. Alexander began noticing the artistry in Maria's work, how she arranged flowers in the reception area to catch morning light perfectly, how she aligned desk items at precise angles that somehow made each office feel more welcoming. These weren't just cleaning tasks, they were acts of care that transformed spaces. Maria, in turn, observed Alexander's leadership style during late hours. She watched him pause to help a junior analyst struggling with printer issues, spending 20 minutes teaching rather than simply fixing the problem. She noticed how he left handwritten notes of encouragement for the cleaning staff when they tackled difficult projects, something no previous CEO had done. Their professional appreciation evolved into deeper understanding. When Alexander had to make tough decisions about company layoffs, Maria saw the weight in his shoulders, the extra hours he spent trying to save jobs. He noticed how she quietly left coffee and fresh fruit for overworked interns during tax season, paying from her own pocket to support those who reminded her of her daughter. They recognized in each other a shared commitment to excellence that transcended job titles. Maria's attention to detail matched Alexander's own standards, not because someone was watching, but because anything worth doing deserved full effort. His dedication to supporting employees' growth mirrored her own sacrifice for her daughter's education. Their understanding grew in comfortable silences too. Some evenings, they worked in quiet harmony, him reviewing reports in the conference room, her methodically cleaning nearby offices. No words needed, just the peaceful knowledge of another soul who understood the value of dedication, the dignity of work, and the importance of doing things right. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, bearing the prestigious letterhead of Columbia University School of Medicine. Isabella Martinez's hands trembled as she read the words that would change her life. Her mother was already at work, so she had to wait, holding this life-changing news close to her heart. Maria's phone buzzed during her afternoon shift at the elementary school cafeteria. One look at her daughter's name on the screen, and she knew something important had happened. She stepped into the empty hallway, her heart racing as Isabella's voice came through, thick with tears of joy. "Mama, I got in. Columbia accepted me. Full scholarship." The words echoed in Maria's ears as tears streamed down her face. Years of double shifts, countless sacrifices, and endless prayers had culminated in this moment. Her daughter, her brilliant, determined Isabella, would become Dr. Martinez. The cafeteria staff found her moments later, still crying happy tears, clutching her phone to her heart like a precious gift. The news filled her with such joy that she practically floated through her evening shift at Sterling Industries. Every surface she cleaned shone a little brighter, every task felt lighter. Her daughter's victory made every long night, every aching muscle, every moment of exhaustion worth it. This was what the American dream truly meant, a mother's sacrifice blooming into her daughter's success. That evening, Alexander found himself working later than usual in the conference room, surrounded by acquisition reports. The quiet floor suddenly came alive with the sound of rapid Spanish, the words tumbling out in a mixture of joy and disbelief. Through the partially open door, he could hear Maria's voice, usually so composed, now bright with emotion. "Mi amor, I knew you could do it. My daughter, my brilliant daughter." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, even as she switched between English and Spanish. "Yes, yes, we must tell Abuela right away. A doctor in the family. All your hard work, mi cielo." Alexander sat motionless, reports forgotten in front of him. He'd never heard such pure joy, such unrestrained pride in anyone's voice before. Through the glass walls, he could see Maria pacing small circles near her cleaning cart, one hand pressing her phone to her ear, the other wiping away tears of happiness. "The scholarship too? Dios mío. Your father would have been so proud, mi amor. So proud." Her voice caught on the words, emotion making them thick and tender. The moment felt intensely private, yet Alexander couldn't help but be moved by the raw authenticity of her joy. Here was success in its purest form, not measured in stock prices or profit margins, but in dreams achieved through determination and love. Long after Maria's phone call ended, Alexander remained in the conference room, lost in thought. The quarterly reports before him suddenly seemed hollow, numbers and projections that measured everything except what truly mattered. He thought about the pride in Maria's voice, the kind of pride no amount of money could buy. Here was a woman who cleaned offices at night so her daughter could pursue her dreams. While his board members talked about legacy in terms of market share and acquisitions, Maria was building a legacy of determination and grace. She carried herself with more dignity cleaning floors than many executives did in their corner offices. The truth hit him with startling clarity: he'd spent years judging success by the wrong measures. His mind wandered to the latest board meeting, where members had discussed the appropriate distance between management and support staff. Yet Maria's dedication to excellence, her unwavering work ethic, her commitment to creating beauty in small details, these qualities outshone the polished veneers of many corporate climbers he knew. He thought about how she treated everyone with the same respect, whether they were janitors or executives. How she took pride in tasks others considered beneath them. How she worked with quiet persistence toward a goal bigger than herself. In that moment, Alexander realized that true character had nothing to do with job titles or corner offices. It lived in the choices people made when nobody was watching. The next evening, Alexander waited by the employee entrance, holding 2 cups of coffee from the artisanal cafe down the street. When Maria arrived for her shift, surprise flickered across her face at seeing the CEO of Sterling Industries standing there, dressed casually in a light blue button-down with rolled-up sleeves. "I heard your news yesterday," he said, offering her a cup. "I hope you don't mind. It's just well, some celebrations deserve more than break room coffee." The steam rose between them in the cool evening air, carrying the rich aroma of properly brewed Colombian beans. For a moment, Maria hesitated, years of ingrained professional boundaries warring with the genuine warmth in his gesture. Then she smiled, accepting the cup with a graceful gracias. They found themselves walking to the small garden area behind the building, where employees usually took their smoke breaks. Columbia Medical School, Alexander said, settling onto a bench. Your daughter must be brilliant. The pride that lit up Maria's face made the setting sun seem dim in comparison. She told him about Isabella's journey, the late-night study sessions, the volunteer work at local clinics, the unwavering determination to heal others. You know, he shared, my mother worked 2 jobs to put me through business school. She was a waitress. The words came easily, naturally. She used to tell me that dignity isn't in what you do, but how you do it. Maria nodded, understanding flowing between them. My mother taught me the same. She cleaned houses, but she turned each task into an art. She said excellence is a habit of the heart, not the hands. They talked as equals, their usual roles forgotten in the growing dusk. Alexander spoke about his early struggles, the pressure of rising from nothing to build Sterling Industries. Maria shared stories of coming to America, of building a life full of purpose despite countless obstacles. The story broke on a Thursday morning. A junior reporter from the Financial Times, working late on an article about Sterling Industries' latest acquisition, had spotted Alexander and Maria sharing coffee in the building's garden. By noon, photos of their quiet conversation had spread across business news websites. The headlines ranged from sensational to skeptical: Sterling CEO's secret evening meetings, corporate king and cleaning lady, a modern fairy tale. The business world buzzed with speculation. Sterling Industries' stock price fluctuated as analysts debated whether this revelation would impact the company's stability. Corporate gossip columns painted their own pictures. Some praised it as a heartwarming story of workplace equality, while others questioned Alexander's judgment. Social media exploded with competing narratives, from romantic speculations to cynical accusations of publicity stunts. The paparazzi descended like moths to flame. Photographers lingered outside Sterling Industries, hoping to catch glimpses of interaction between the CEO and the cleaning lady. Maria's co-workers found themselves fielding calls from reporters offering money for insider information. Even Mr. Thompson, the night security guard, had to dodge questions during his morning coffee runs. The media frenzy transformed their quiet friendship into front-page news. Every casual interaction became potential headline material. The peaceful sanctuary they'd found in evening conversations now felt exposed under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Their simple story of human connection had become a corporate scandal, forcing both Alexander and Maria to confront questions they'd been carefully avoiding. The emergency board meeting was called on a Friday morning. The mahogany conference room, usually a space for strategic discussions, crackled with tension as 12 board members sat rigidly in their leather chairs. Richard Blackwood, the lead director, placed a stack of newspapers on the table, each featuring photos of Alexander and Maria. "This has gone far enough, Alexander," Blackwood began, his voice carrying decades of corporate authority. "The shareholders are nervous. Our stock has dropped 8 points since these photos surfaced. 3 major investors have called expressing serious concerns about company leadership." Margaret Chen, head of the ethics committee, slid a folder across the polished table. "We've drafted a press release announcing a restructuring of the maintenance department. The cleaning services will be outsourced to an external contractor. All current cleaning staff will be terminated with generous severance packages." "And if I refuse?" Alexander's question hung in the air like frost. Thomas Reynolds, his longtime mentor, leaned forward. Then we'll be forced to call for a vote of no confidence. The board is unanimous on this, Alexander. Either the cleaning staff goes, or you do. We can't have the CEO of Sterling Industries romantically linked to. He paused, choosing his words carefully, someone of her position. You have 24 hours to make your decision, Blackwood concluded. Either sign the restructuring documents, or submit your resignation. The company's reputation must be protected at all costs. The ultimatum landed with the weight of a gavel strike. Alexander looked around the table, meeting the eyes of people he'd worked with for years. Some couldn't hold his gaze, others stared back with cold determination. The message was clear: the carefully constructed walls between social classes had to be maintained, no matter the human cost. That evening after the meeting, Maria found him in his office, the weight of the board's ultimatum visible in the set of his shoulders. She stood in the doorway, still in her cleaning uniform, her quiet dignity more striking than ever. I heard about the board meeting, she said softly. The walls in this building have ears. Before Alexander could speak, she pulled an envelope from her pocket, crossing the room to place it gently on his desk. My resignation, effective immediately. Her voice remained steady, though her hands trembled slightly. You've built something remarkable here, Mr. Sterling. 5,000 families depend on you. I can't be the reason it all falls apart. Isabella will start medical school soon, she continued, her chin lifted proudly despite the pain in her eyes. I can find another job. The hospital always needs cleaning staff, and they offer good benefits. But you need to continue leading this company. Too many people rely on you. Alexander stared at the envelope, its crisp whiteness a stark contrast against his dark desk. Maria! Please, she interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. Some sacrifices are worth making. You taught me that, how a true leader puts others first. Let me do this. Let me protect what you've built. The selflessness of her gesture, the quiet strength behind it, struck Alexander like a physical blow. Here was true leadership, true character, not in the boardroom's power plays, but in this woman's willingness to sacrifice her own security for others. Alexander stood slowly, picking up Maria's resignation letter. In one fluid motion, he tore it in half, then quarters, letting the pieces flutter to his desk like snow. No, he said quietly, then again with more force, no. I won't let them reduce something beautiful into something shameful. He moved around his desk, taking Maria's hands in his. For years, I've preached about corporate values, integrity, excellence, respect for all. If I back down now, every word becomes a lie. Every speech about equal opportunity, every promise about dignity of work, every claim about Sterling Industries being different from other corporations, all meaningless. His voice grew stronger with each word. They want me to choose between love and status, between real connection and corporate appearance. But what kind of leader would I be if I abandoned my heart to protect my position? Maria's eyes widened at the word love, spoken so naturally, so definitively. Alexander himself seemed surprised by its emergence, but his grip on her hands tightened. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling a company-wide meeting. No more hiding, no more pretending that job titles define human worth. If the board wants a war over this, they'll get one. But I won't let them turn our story into something shameful. The city lights twinkled beyond his office windows, witnesses to this moment of transformation. In choosing love over power, in refusing to bow to prejudice masked as protocol, Alexander Sterling was becoming more than a CEO. He was becoming the leader he'd always aspired to be. The next morning, information about a general meeting by 12 p.m. had already been passed to all employees, both executive and casual. The Sterling Industries auditorium had never been so packed. Employees from every department, every level, filled the seats and lined the walls after being informed about the meeting. The cleaning staff, usually invisible during daylight hours, stood proudly in their uniforms near the front. Alexander took the stage without notes, without preparation, armed only with truth. "Look around this room," he began, his voice carrying to every corner. "What do you see?" "I'll tell you what I see. I see human beings. Not job titles. Not salary brackets. Not social classes. I see mothers working for their children's dreams. Fathers building futures. People of every background united by the desire to create something meaningful." He paused, his eyes finding Maria in the crowd. "For years, I thought success meant climbing higher, building walls between ourselves and those we considered beneath us. I was wrong. True success isn't measured by the height of our office, but by the depth of our character." His voice grew passionate. "But what damages a company more, loving someone who works with dignity and dedication, or pretending that worth is determined by job titles?" Every night, while most of us sleep, Maria Martinez and her team transform our offices into spaces where we can do our best work. Every morning, while executives discuss profit margins, she's already completed more honest work than many of us will do all day. Her daughter just got accepted to Columbia Medical School. Tell me, what's worth more? A CEO's status, or a mother's sacrifice for her child's dreams? If this company's reputation can't survive an honest connection between two human beings, then maybe we need to rebuild our reputation. If our success requires us to deny love, to reject genuine human connection, then maybe we need to redefine success. I stand here today not just as your CEO, but as a man who finally understands that real leadership means having the courage to tear down walls, not build them higher. I choose love. I choose authenticity. I choose to believe that Sterling Industries is strong enough to lead by example, to show that true worth isn't in what we own, but in who we are. The applause began slowly, a single clap from the maintenance department. Then another joined, and another, until the sound swelled into a thunderous standing ovation. Executives stood beside janitors, administrative assistants next to security guards, all united in their support. Social media exploded with the hashtag #LoveOverStatus. Sterling Industries employees began sharing their own stories, the VP who started in the mail room, the CFO whose mother still cleaned houses, the countless hidden connections that made up the company's true fabric. The narrative shifted from scandal to inspiration. Major news outlets picked up the story, but not as the scandal the board had feared. Instead, headlines celebrated corporate America's reality check and CEO chooses love over prejudice. Sterling Industries stock, after an initial dip, soared as customers and investors praised the company's humanity. Letters and emails flooded in from around the world. Other CEOs publicly supported Alexander's stance. Corporate clients increased their contracts, proud to be associated with a company that valued human dignity over social pretense. Young professionals flooded Sterling Industries with job applications, eager to work for a leader who stood by his principles. The most powerful support came from within. When the board threatened to force Alexander out, hundreds of employees, from vice presidents to maintenance staff, threatened to walk out with him. Faced with potential mass resignation and overwhelming public support, the board had no choice but to withdraw their ultimatum. In the end, Love didn't just win, it transformed. Sterling Industries became known not just for its business success, but for its commitment to human dignity and authentic leadership. My beautiful story family, as Alexander and Maria's love story continues to unfold, I want to use this moment to hear from you. Has life ever surprised you with love in the most unexpected moments? In the most unlikely places? Share your beautiful stories in the comments below. Your experiences touch my heart and inspire me to keep creating these stories for you. I dedicate 12 hours each day to crafting these moments we share, and every subscription, every comment makes this journey worthwhile. Join our growing family by hitting that subscribe button, and let's continue celebrating love's power to break down walls and change lives together. 1 year later, the Sterling Industries building glowed with thousands of tiny lights. The rooftop garden, usually reserved for corporate events, had been transformed into an intimate wedding venue. White roses and lilies perfumed the evening air, their petals catching the golden light of the setting sun. Maria wore an elegant lace gown, handmade by her mother's friends back in Mexico. Around her neck hung her treasured silver locket, now containing 3 photos, her late husband, Isabella, and Alexander. Her cleaning staff colleagues, dressed in their finest, beamed with pride from the front rows. They'd insisted on handling all the decorations themselves, turning the corporate space into a fairy-tale setting with their characteristic attention to detail. Alexander stood at the altar in a classic black tuxedo, his usual corporate polish softened by genuine joy. His mother sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she watched her son marry a woman who reminded her so much of herself. Mr. Thompson, the night security guard, served as best man, the person who'd witnessed their love story from the very beginning. The ceremony combined both their worlds perfectly. Corporate executives sat beside maintenance staff, board members next to cafeteria workers. The cleaning crew who'd worked alongside Maria for years handled the flower arrangements with the same care they brought to their nightly duties. As the couple exchanged vows, the New York skyline provided a glittering backdrop, the same view that had witnessed their first chance encounter. Not long after that, Columbia Medical School's graduation ceremony buzzed with the energy of dreams fulfilled. Among the sea of blue gowns and proud families, Isabella Martinez stood out, not just for her valedictorian honors, but for her unique cheering section. Her mother Maria, elegantly dressed in a royal blue dress, sat between her new husband Alexander and her mother who'd flown in from Mexico. When Isabella's name echoed through the auditorium, 3 generations of strong women wiped away tears. Maria watched her daughter cross the stage, remembering countless nights of cleaning offices while Isabella studied, endless sacrifices that had led to this moment. Her mother, who was around Maria's age when she'd first come to America, clutched her hand, whispering prayers of gratitude. Alexander beamed with genuine fatherly pride. Over the past year, he'd grown close to Isabella, bonding over late-night study sessions where he'd bring her coffee at the library, just as her mother had once brought him coffee during his late work nights. He'd insisted on setting up a medical scholarship fund in Maria's name at Sterling Industries, ensuring other hard-working families could pursue their dreams. As Isabella accepted her diploma, she paused to wave at her family. The gesture carried years of history, her father's memory, her mother's sacrifices, her grandmother's wisdom, and now Alexander's supportive presence. In that moment, she wasn't just Dr. Isabella Martinez, she was the product of unconditional love, unwavering determination, and the belief that dreams know no social boundaries. In the moments that followed, Sterling Industries' annual report told a story that shocked Wall Street analysts. In the year following Alexander and Maria's wedding, company profits had soared by an unprecedented 40%. Employee satisfaction ratings hit record highs, while turnover rates plummeted to industry-leading lows. The company's new Dignity First initiative, inspired by Maria's work ethic, revolutionized corporate culture. Every employee, from executives to maintenance staff, participated in monthly role exchange days. Vice presidents worked alongside cleaning crews, while maintenance staff shared insights in board meetings. The program became so successful that Fortune 500 companies paid premium consulting fees to learn Sterling's secrets. Innovation flourished in this new atmosphere of genuine respect. The maintenance team's practical suggestions led to millions in energy savings. Entry-level employees felt confident sharing ideas that transformed into profitable ventures. The company's reputation attracted top talent who chose Sterling over higher-paying competitors, drawn by its authentic commitment to human dignity. International business magazines featured Sterling Industries as a case study in modern leadership. The Cleaning Lady's Impact on Corporate America read one headline, detailing how a chance encounter in an executive bathroom had triggered a management revolution. The article noted that companies adopting Sterling's inclusive policies saw average productivity increases of 25%. In the end, this story shows us that true love doesn't see titles, positions, or social status. It sees the heart, the character, the soul of a person. In a world obsessed with labels and hierarchy, sometimes the most powerful act is simply seeing people for who they are, not what they do. When we strip away the artificial barriers we've built, the corner offices, the job titles, the social classes, we discover that human connection knows no bounds. Every person carries a story worth hearing, a dream worth supporting, and a heart capable of changing our world. Including you, my dearest family listening to me now. Life has a beautiful way of turning our most awkward moments into our greatest blessings. A coffee stain, a wrong turn, an accidental encounter, these seemingly embarrassing instances can become the crossroads where destiny works its magic. Maria and Alexander's story reminds us that sometimes life's most precious gifts come wrapped in moments we'd rather forget. So next time something embarrassing happens, smile and remember, that awkward moment might just be the universe setting the stage for something wonderful. And there you have it, my beautiful story family, the extraordinary tale of how a chance encounter in an executive bathroom transformed not just two lives, but an entire corporate culture. But this isn't just another love story to hear and forget. It's a reminder of love's power to break down walls we think are permanent. If Maria and Alexander's journey has touched your heart, if it's made you reconsider how you view success, status, and genuine connection, take a moment right now. Join our story-sharing family by hitting that subscribe button. Become part of a community that believes in love's power to transform lives. Share this story with someone who needs to believe in unexpected love. Leave a comment telling us about a time when love found you in the most surprising place, or tell us about someone in your life who, like Maria, proves that true worth isn't measured by titles. Remember, changing hearts and minds starts with sharing stories like these. Whether you're watching from New York or across the globe, you have the power to challenge social barriers in your own world. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we can create more stories where love triumphs over status, where dignity outshines position, and where life's most embarrassing moments become our greatest blessings.